My name is Arthur Cole. I was born on the Starseeker 212 years after she left Earth orbit, 32 years after my father slit his own throat with a scalpel, and exactly 100 years after the hydroponics bays were declared dead. I am the third Cole to hold the title Cryo-Sustainment Technician, which is what the captain calls the man who unplugs sleeping passengers and feeds them into the recycler. Everyone else just calls me the technician, like the job and the name are the same thing. Today's quota is one. One sleeper, one body, one bucket of paste that will keep the rest of us chewing for another week. The order came down at shift change, folded into the daily data packet like it was routine maintenance. It isn't. The last time the quota went up, my father started talking to the pods instead of checking their vitals. 6 months later, I found him cold on the floor with the word "no more" scrawled in his own blood across the final page of his log. I keep that page in my pocket now, folded so small the ink has gone soft and blurry against the sweat of my palm. I leave my quarters at what passes for morning on a ship where time is measured in engine cycles instead of sunlight. Deck 10 smells like cold metal and recycled air that's been through too many lungs. The cryo bay stretches ahead of me in a long, dim throat of steel and frost. 300 pods on each side, each one a person who thought they'd wake up on a new world. Most of them still will. The rest are tagged in the captain's ledger as biomass reserves, which is the polite way of saying they're food. I stop at the console and thumb in my access code. The screen blinks awake with a list of names. The system has already done the math. No living kin among the awake crew, no specialty skills that might be useful later, no one who'll be missed by anyone still breathing. At the top of the list, Subject 1234, Anna Flores, occupation listed as cartographer, age at launch 31. She's been asleep for 2 centuries while her maps turned obsolete. I tap her file open. Her photo loads. Brown skin, dark hair pulled back, eyes fixed on something beyond the camera. The summary says she used to chart ocean floors. I stare at her long enough that the screen dims, then brighten it again because looking away feels worse. I tell myself she's a stranger. I tell myself she's already gone, that the cold took her long before I ever opened the pod. I don't believe it, but I say it anyway because the job doesn't work if I don't. I key the release. Somewhere behind the walls, hydraulics sigh and locks click open. The pod slides out on its rails like a drawer in a morgue. Frost clings to the glass, but I can still see her face through it, calm and unafraid, like she's dreaming of something better than this place. I reach for the seal and my hand stops halfway. My pulse is loud enough to hear over the noise of the bay. I think about my father's last words. I think about Daniel Frost, who still believes we're going to plant trees on Kepler, and who has no idea what keeps him alive. The pod waits. The rule is simple. Open, verify, transfer. The rule is older than I am. The rule is why we're still breathing. But I stand there with my glove resting on the glass, and for the first time in 10 years I wonder what happens if I just don't. I keep my hand on the glass longer than the protocol allows. The plastic of the glove squeaks. The frost beneath it melts into a single tear-shaped drop that slides down and disappears into the seam between lid and frame. I count the seconds. 1, 2, 3, because the handbook says hesitation is the first symptom of task degradation. And if anyone is monitoring the bay cameras, they'll flag the pause. I force my fingers to the seal, pop the latch, and the lid hisses open like it's sighing. Cold air spills out and washes over my face. It smells of the chemical they pump into the pods to keep the skin supple. Sweet, medicinal. Anna Flores lies there in the silver thermal wrap they all wear, arms at her sides, palms up, as if she's about to receive something. I perform the check the same way my father showed me when I was 16. Thumb to carotid, count 6 beats, confirm suspended metabolism. The pulse is there, slow as a planet turning. She is alive in the way a seed is alive, everything paused, waiting for the right season that will never come. I unhook the IV lines and the neural leads. Each connector makes a small plastic click that echoes in the empty bay. The protocol says I should log the exact time of disconnection. Instead, I stare at her wristband and read her name out loud. Once. Like I'm introducing myself to her instead of ending her. The sound of my own voice feels borrowed. When I was a kid, I used to mouth the names in secret, pretending they were passengers on a ship I captained somewhere else. My father caught me doing it once and slapped the back of my head so hard I bit my tongue. "They aren't stories," he said. "They're inventory." He was already 3 years into the job then, already not sleeping. I grip the rails and roll the cot toward the service lift. The wheels squeak in the same rhythm every time, and by now I could walk the distance blindfolded by counting those squeaks. 33 pushes to the lift, 8 floors down to the recycler. Halfway there, I pass Jacob Bell leaning against a bulkhead, fiddling with a broken conduit like it's the most important job on the ship. He doesn't look up, just says, "Cold down here today," as I go by. I nod because I'm not supposed to talk during transfer. But I hear him add, almost under the engine noise, "Your dad used to stop at the same spot, stared at the wall like it owed him money." The words follow me into the lift and clang around inside the metal box, louder than the motors. 8 floors down, the air warms by a few degrees. The recycler sits at the far end of a narrow chamber lit by one overhead strip. It looks like a steel coffin stood on end, except the front opens like a mouth, and the back end feeds directly into the paste tanks. There's a drain in the floor that never quite dries. I park the cot beside it and key the panel. The machine wakes with a low, even hum, deep enough to feel in my chest, the same note I hear in my dreams when I can't tell if I'm awake or not. I lift Ana Flores. She weighs less than she should. The suspension process leaches water over time. Her head lolls against my shoulder, hair brushing my neck, and for a second I think I smell salt, like an ocean she once mapped. I settle her inside the chamber, step back, and the mouth begins to close. The rule says I'm done once the door seals. The rule says I don't have to watch. I watch anyway because somewhere in the back of my head a small, stupid voice insists that if I see it through to the end, maybe the numbers will balance and I can go back to pretending I'm just a technician. A century ago, a micrometeoroid storm punched holes through the outer hull and shredded the hydroponics and protein synthesizers beyond what we could fix with the tools on board. The captain at the time said we'd starve before we finished the trip unless we found another source of calories. So the recycler was rebuilt to turn the sleeping passengers, those without living relatives awake, into the nutrient paste that now fills the mess hall dispensers. That decision became Contingency Protocol 734, and my family has been the quiet surgeons of it ever since. The mouth closes. The hum rises to a steady throb. A minute later, a green light blinks. Cycle complete. Somewhere overhead, a tank level ticks up by exactly 1 human being. I stand there until the light goes dark, then turn toward the console to log the weight. My hand hovers over the keypad. Instead of the usual code, I type her name, Ana Flores, into the notes field. The system will erase it at next purge, but for now it exists. A tiny mutiny no one will notice. When I head back to the lift, my shoes stick to the floor. I don't look down. I count the squeaks again. 33 back to the bay, 33 lies. I tell myself to keep the rhythm. Halfway up, the lift shudders and pauses between floors. For 3 heartbeats, everything stops. The motors, my breath, the ship. In that pocket of silence, I swear I hear a voice, soft and female and very close, say my name. Then the lift lurches upward and I'm moving again, telling myself it was just the hydraulics, just the echo of my own guilt. Back on deck 10, the bay, I slide the empty pod into its rack and the frost starts reclaiming the glass. I should move on to the next task, run diagnostics. update the captain. Instead, I stand there staring at the space where Anna used to be, waiting for the relief that never comes. The screen beside me blinks a new line of text. Next designation ready. I close my eyes and feel the weight of the ship. The years, the generations, the quiet agreement we all swallowed so we could keep breathing. Somewhere in the dark between decks, the recycler keeps humming, patient as a heartbeat, asking for more. I'm still back in the bay, staring at the empty pod, when the console pings. It's the daily packet. Routine manifests, temperature logs, a note from medical asking why power draw near the recycler spiked last night. I thumb through the list the way my father taught me. Quick, practical, no lingering. Then the last line stops me cold. Directive appended by Captain Rourke. Effective immediately. Increase monthly reclamation yield by 20%. No exceptions. 20%. That's 6 bodies instead of 5, which means I'll need to pull from deeper in the stacks. People who've been asleep longer. People whose families might still be walking around 3 decks above me. The rule about no living relations has held for 100 years. Now it's a polite suggestion. I read the sentence again, slower, like the words might rearrange themselves into something less ugly. They stay put. I can already feel the arithmetic crawling under my skin. 6 pods, 6 names, 6 more nights listening for voices in the static. The captain's signature sits at the bottom in clean block letters, the same font he uses for maintenance schedules and mess hall menus. Business as usual. My hand hovers over the acknowledgement key. If I refuse, the order bounces back, flagged non-compliant, and somewhere up on the bridge a red light starts blinking. If I accept, I'm agreeing to break the one line I thought they'd never cross. I hit the key. The screen flashes green. The console beeps once, polite and final. I stand there long enough for the bay lights to dim to half power. In the quiet, I hear the recycler cycling down below, the low thump that means the tanks are topping off. 20% more. I do the count in my head. 33 pushes to the lift, 33 squeaks back, 6 times. I wonder if the wheels will hold, or if they'll finally squeal loud enough for the whole ship to hear. I close the empty pod, latch it, and the frost starts crawling back across the glass like it's trying to erase the space where Ana Flores used to be. Somewhere behind me, the console chirps again. Next designation ready, already impatient. I wait until the lights finish their dimming cycle, and the bay is nothing but the dull glow of status LEDs. Little red and green pinpricks that look like constellations in a sky that forgot how to burn. My feet are cold through the soles of my boots. The deck plating has been leaching heat for generations. I open the next file because that's what the protocol demands, and because standing still is the fastest way to start hearing voices. Subject 1527, Marcus Hale. No recorded specialty, no listed next of kin. I run the background sweep anyway. 3 generations of bloodlines cross-checked against the awake roster. The screen scrolls, then stalls. A match. Cousin. 2nd degree. Alive. Working hydroponics on deck 6. Daniel's sector. My stomach folds in on itself. I stare at the name until the letters blur. The rule has always been clear. No immediate or 2nd degree relatives among the awake. The captain's new order didn't mention rewriting the rule. It just said, no exceptions. I scroll further. 2 more names have living ties. The math tightens. 6 bodies, 3 of them off limits by the old standard, which means Rourke has already decided the standard is negotiable. I close the file and the console asks for confirmation. I don't give it. I walk the length of the bay, counting pods like I used to count sheep when I was small and still believed in sleep without dreams. I stop at the far end, where the older stacks sit, people launched before my grandparents were born. Their labels are yellowed, the plastic cracking. I rest a hand on one. The nameplate reads, David Cole, my grandfather, still sleeping. I think about the captain up on deck 1, staring at graphs that tell him how many calories per body, How many weeks until the tanks hit critical? I think about Daniel watering soy leaf cuttings and humming like the future is something we're owed. I think about Silas Croft somewhere below, probably cleaning the recycler filters with the devotion of a priest polishing altar rails. I key the console again, pull the full manifest for next cycle, and start deleting the names with the living kin. The screen blares red, authorization override required. My badge number won't cover this. I stare at the prompt, cursor blinking like a steady heartbeat, and type a new line into the internal memo field. Request clarification on consanguinity clause. Urgent. I send it before I can think better of it. The reply pings back almost immediately, too fast for a human hand. Clause suspended per Contingency Protocol 734. Addendum A. Compliance mandatory. No signature. Just the same font that labels protein rations. The floor feels lower than it did an hour ago, like the deck plates have settled another millimeter under the extra weight they're asking me to add. I can't stay in the bay staring at blinking cursors. Cameras notice that. So I walk. I walk past row after row of frost-lidded coffins and let the chill seep into my skin until it burns, hoping the cold will cauterize the panic that's leaking out of me in slow, shameful pulses. I end up outside the recycler room. I lean my forehead to the metal and feel the vibration travel through bone. It's the same rhythm every time, steady as a heart. Somewhere inside, the last of Ana Flores is cooling into beige, tasteless bricks that will be squeezed into foil tubes and stacked in the mess hall like ammunition. I picture Daniel tearing one open tomorrow, smearing it on ration bread, telling me between bites that the soy leaf batch is finally thick enough to transplant. I need to move again. I take the service ladder up 2 decks, rung after rung, palms stinging on the rails. I emerge near the hydroponics corridor where the air smells of algae and warm copper coils. Daniel's shift doesn't start for another hour, but I find him anyway, kneeling beside a cracked trough, sleeves rolled high, fingers deep in nutrient sludge. He doesn't hear me at first. When he does, he wipes his hands on his thighs and grins like I've just arrived with good news. "You look like you wrestled a compressor and lost," he says. I try to answer, but the words jam behind my teeth. He waits. We've known each other since we were kids, assigned to the same classroom module. He's used to my silences. Eventually, I manage. They raise the quota. It comes out flat, like I'm reading a temperature gauge. Daniel's brow creases. How much? 20%. He whistles, low. You'll need another hand. I could swing a double. Help you run diagnostics. No. The refusal snaps out too sharp. I soften it with a shrug that feels borrowed. It's compartment work, you know. He nods, but the easy line of his shoulders tightens. You're burning out, Art. People notice. He gestures at the plants around us, pale green under the lamps. These things can't grow if the gardener's dying. Same goes for us. I almost tell him then. Almost open my mouth and let the whole ugly truth spill onto the floor between us. Instead, I stare at a single soy leaf seedling curling toward the light, like it's trying to escape its own roots. My voice comes out small. What if the garden was never supposed to grow? What if we were only ever meant to keep watering the lie? Daniel frowns, confused. I force a laugh. Forget it. Long shift. I turn to leave, but he catches my wrist. His fingers are damp and warm against my skin. Whatever's eating you, he says. You don't have to chew it alone. I nod, pull free, and walk away before the rest of the sentence can crawl out of me. Behind me, the lamps keep humming. The leaves keep drinking, and I carry his kindness like a stone in my throat all the way back to the ladder. Halfway down, the ship intercom crackles for the first time in months. Captain Rourke's voice, calm and precise. All department heads to mid-deck conference room at 1800. Mandatory attendance. The line cuts. No explanation. I check my wrist chrono. That gives me 4 hours to decide whether I show up as the technician or as something that still has a name. 4 hours is nothing on a ship where the clocks run slow and the corridors all look the same, but it stretches until every second feels like dry ice against skin. I go back to my quarters because it's the one place without cameras, close the door and press my spine to the wall until the metal cools the sweat between my shoulder blades. My father's logbooks are still stacked on the shelf where I left them after I pried the last one open and found the schematic. I pull the final volume down, the one they found beside his body, and flip to the back page. The blood that wrote "No More" has flaked away to rust-coloured dust, but the imprint of the letters is still there, pressed into the paper like scars. I sit on the bunk and spread the schematic fragment across my knees. It's half a sheet, torn crooked, showing a section of hydroponics plumbing labelled "Repair Kit on Board, Class A Fabrication." At the bottom is a timestamp, and the initials Alistair Rourke, the first captain, the man who started this. The same hand that signed the protocol is the one that wrote "Irreparable" in the official log. Lying in ink, lying in blood, lying in the steady drip of nutrient paste we've all been swallowing for 100 years. I fold the paper smaller until it fits inside the hollow button of my coat sleeve. A stupid hiding place, but it's the only part of my uniform nobody ever checks. Then I open the drawer where I keep the service knife. 10 centimeters of steel, sterilized after every shift. I turn it over in my palm. Holding something sharp makes the shaking stop. I tell myself I'm deciding. In truth, I'm only stalling, waiting for the minute hand to crawl far enough that walking to mid-deck feels inevitable. 17:30. I leave the knife behind. If I walk in armed, Rourke will read threat instead of question, and threats get recycled. I take the main corridor instead of the service ladder, letting the route stretch so I can rehearse words. People pass me. A pair of sanitation techs arguing about filter quotas, a medic carrying a tray of blood samples, none of them looking at me long enough to see the quota burning holes in my head. 17:45. I reach the mid-deck conference room. The door is already open. Inside, the long table is half full. Department heads in pressed uniforms, eyes forward, conversations clipped. Daniel isn't here. Hydroponics doesn't rate head of department status. But Silas Croft is, standing against the back wall like a spare part someone forgot to shelve. His coveralls are spotless, the way a zealot keeps his altar cloth spotless. When he sees me, he smiles without showing teeth. I take the empty chair nearest the exit, the one that faces the door instead of the screen. 17:58. Captain Rourke enters. No fanfare, just the soft click of polished boots and the hush that follows. He's taller than I remember, or maybe the room shrank. He sets a single data slate on the table, screen down, and looks at each of us the way a mechanic looks at a row of gauges, measuring pressure, looking for the one that's about to burst. When his gaze reaches me, it lingers like a locked door with no handle, then moves on. "Thank you for your punctuality," he says. "We'll be brief. Caloric balance is trending negative. Effective immediately, Contingency Protocol 734 will expand to include sleepers with second-degree familial ties." The room doesn't move. I wonder if they already knew, or if obedience has simply worn grooves in their spines. Rourke continues. "Implementation begins next cycle. Objections may be filed through proper channels." He waits 3 heartbeats for questions that don't come. Then he turns the slate over. On the screen is a single name, highlighted in red. Daniel Frost, cousin to subject 1527. Next on the list. Rourke's eyes find mine across the table. "Technician Cole, you will handle the first transfer personally. Dismissed." I don't move when the room empties. The scrape of chairs and the shuffle of boots fade down the corridor, taking the last pretense of order with them. The door hisses shut, and the walls settle into a quiet so complete I can hear the blood moving behind my ears. Rourke stays behind, hands clasped behind his back, watching me like a man waiting for a fuse to burn down. "Anything to add, technician?" His voice is the same pitch the recycler uses, designed to grind resistance into slurry. I open my mouth. Nothing comes. My tongue feels thick, foreign. I picture Daniel standing over his soy leaf trays, palms muddy, humming some forgotten earth tune that probably has a name I never learned. I picture the red highlight around his name on the captain's slate. I picture the knife I left in the drawer. Rourke steps closer. His boots stop just short of the toe print marks my father left on this same deck 20 years ago. "I understand your hesitation," he says. "Sentiment is a luxury we surrendered the day the hydroponics failed. You know the math." I do know the math. 6 bodies instead of 5. One of them Daniel. The rest of the crew might last an extra 9 days on the surplus. 9 days closer to Kepler. 9 days further from starvation. 9 days bought with the only friend who still talks to me like I'm human. Rourke's eyes flick to my sleeve where the folded schematic bulges against the button. I think he sees it. I think he sees everything. "You'll execute the order," he says. My hand finds the table edge. The metal is warm from someone else's palm. I grip it until the tremor steadies. "I want to see the original hydroponics report," I say. The words come out flat, almost polite, like I'm asking to borrow a tool. Something moves behind his face, too quick to name. "Classified," he answers. "Classified by whom?" "By necessity." He turns to go. At the door he pauses, doesn't look back. "Cycle begins at 0600. I'll expect confirmation by 07. The door seals. I'm alone with the after-image of Daniel's name glowing red behind my eyelids. My knees decide the chair is necessary again. I sit, pull the schematic out, unfold it on the table. The torn edge lines up with a crease that wasn't there before, like the paper itself is trying to fit the pieces back together. I trace the initials with my thumbnail until the skin turns white. One signature started the lie. One more signature could end it. I don't know how to break a ship, but I know how to break a schedule. I know the exact minute the cameras switch to archival loop, the exact second the recycler purges its buffer, the exact weight of a body converted to paste. I know Daniel's shift ends at 22:30, and he always takes the long way back because he likes the starlight through the observation blister. I fold the schematic again and tuck it behind the ID card in my pocket where scanners never look. Then I stand, chair scraping loud in the empty room, and walk out carrying the lie like a fuse. If the ship wants Daniel Frost, it will have to go through me first. The corridor outside the conference room is empty except for the hush of the air handlers and the soft yellow wash of the overheads. I count the panels under my boots, 37 to the first junction, 22 more to the service ladder, because numbers are easier than thoughts right now. Every footfall feels rehearsed, like the ship has already decided where I'll go next. I take the ladder down, past Deck 8, where the living quarters smell of recycled soap and too many people in too little space. Down past Deck 9, where the waste heat from the engines keeps the walls warm enough to sweat. Down to Deck 10, where the cryo bay doors yawn open like a mouth that never quite closes. I don't know what I'm looking for yet. I only know the answer won't be found in my bunk or on the bridge. The lights are dimmed for night cycle, but the pods glow from within, each sleeper lit like a specimen in a jar. I walk the aisle until I reach the one I came for. David Cole, suspended 31 years before I was born. My grandfather, the first of us to wear the title technician. His face is sharper than mine, the same jaw but none of the softness my father wore away. I rest my hand on the glass. The frost there is thicker than on the newer pods, like time is trying to erase him in layers. I open the maintenance panel beside the pod. Standard diagnostics, nothing that should trip an alert. Inside is a manual release lever, meant for emergencies, for power loss, for the kind of disaster the protocol was built to prevent. I flip the safety cover and set my thumb on the red switch. One pull and the pod's independent battery kicks in. One more and the sleeper wakes up gasping, lungs burning, mind racing 100 years out of date. I don't pull it. Behind me, footfalls, measured, unhurried. I don't turn. I already know the cadence. Silas Croft, walking the lower deck like he owns the bones of it. "Evening, technician," he says, voice soft enough not to echo. "Troubled sleep?" I keep my back to him. "Just checking seals." He steps closer. I smell the chemical soap he uses, the same scent that clings to the recycler room. "Some seals are better left closed," he murmurs. "Others need opening." A pause, patient as a trap. I hear the next list is 6 names long, and one of them sings in the greenhouses. My shoulders go rigid. He knows. Of course he knows. He's been watching me hesitate, watching Daniel smile, watching the captain's patience thin like wire under tension. I turn. Silas's eyes are bright in the half-light, fever bright, the kind of light that sees purpose where others see only people. "You want the job?" I say. He inclines his head. "I want the work done right, the way the ship demands, the way your family forgot." I take a step toward him. The aisle is narrow. We're chest to chest with the pods at our backs like silent witnesses. I could reach for the emergency alarm, call security, end this now. Instead, I speak low. "If you touch him." Silas smiles. "I won't have to. You will. Or you'll step aside and let someone with faith finish what you lack the stomach for." He taps the pod beside us, David Cole's pod, then leans in until his breath warms my ear. "History repeats, Arthur, unless someone breaks the cycle. Question is, will you break it clean, or just break yourself?" He steps back, hands raised in mock surrender, then turns and walks away, footsteps swallowed by the dark. Somewhere above us, Daniel is finishing his shift, humming, unaware the captain's clock is already ticking toward his name. I leave the bay with the taste of metal in my mouth and the echo of Silas's question drumming behind my eyes. I have until 0600 to decide what kind of break comes next. I don't go back up. I keep walking the lower ring, one foot in front of the other, counting welds the way I once counted rosaries I no longer believe in. The service corridor narrows until the lights overhead are spaced too far apart. Every third bulb is dead. At frame 17B, the wall starts to sweat. Condensation drips in slow, fat drops from a cracked coolant line, each one ringing on the grate beneath my boots. The sound is too small to matter, but I listen anyway, because small sounds are easier than big ones. I kneel, thumb the patch panel, and pretend I'm here on official business. The numbers on the gauge read normal. The lie doesn't even sting anymore. Behind the panel is a maintenance hatch no one uses. The hinge creaks when I lever it open, but the noise is lost under the deeper groan of the ship's spine flexing as she corrects course. Inside the crawl space, the air is warmer, thick with the smell of hot capacitors and old grease. I crawl until the overhead hum fades, and the only thing left is the measured thud of the recycler 2 decks below, working its way through what used to be Ana Flores. I stop when the shaft opens into a pocket of darkness I remember from childhood, an abandoned storage bay we called the Hollow. The emergency lights here gave out years ago. The ship never bothered replacing them once the inventory was marked non-critical. I swing down, boots landing soft on dust thick as felt. I can't see the walls, but I know the layout by heartbeat. One sealed crate left of the access ladder, one stack of obsolete hydroponic tubing right, and in the middle, a single folding chair my father dragged down here the year he started talking to himself. The chair is still here. I sit. I pull the schematic again, unfold it against my knee. The paper catches the glow leaking through the grate overhead, just enough to pick out the stamp. I trace the letters with a fingernail until the edge of the page cuts a thin line into my skin. A bead of blood rises, black in the half-light. I watch it swell, then drop onto the schematic, one small red mark on a century-old lie. I think about broadcasting it. I think about patching the schematic into the public feed so everyone can see the timestamp. See the initials. See that the storm never killed the gardens. Only the men who decided gardens were less useful than control. I think about Daniel's face when the dispensers stop oozing paste. I think about Silas smiling while he ladles it out anyway. I think about my father's last word, and how he still went through with it 6 more times before the scalpel found his throat. I think about the look he gave me the morning he took me down here, showed me the chair. He said, "This is where I come when the numbers stop adding up." I was 16. I thought he meant the math was hard. Now I know he meant the math was murder. I fold the schematic once more, smaller, until it's the size of a seed. I slip it into the hollow aluminum tube that once carried nutrient concentrate, a leftover straw from the ration packs. I climb back out, pull the hatch closed behind me, and start the long walk toward the lift. The corridor brightens as I rise. Somewhere overhead the ship exhales, a long mechanical sigh that sounds almost sorry. I keep my hand in my pocket, fingers curled around the empty straw like it's a fuse, and I keep moving, one foot, then the other, toward whatever burns first. 22:30. I'm outside hydroponics, pressed to the wall like paint, waiting for Daniel's shift to bleed over the way it always does. 5 minutes late, humming every step. The corridor smells of warm algae and copper coils. The overhead lights are set to dusk sim, a dim amber that's supposed to remind us of sunsets we've never seen. They only remind me of warning lamps. Daniel appears carrying a single tray of seed starts, 6 small cups of recycled cellulose, each cradling a fragile green curl. He doesn't notice me until I step in front of him. The tray jerks, one seedling tips. I catch it with the same hand that opened Anna Flores's pod. "Art?" Daniel's voice is worried. "You look... Don't go to your bunk tonight," I say. The words come out rehearsed, but they still shake. "Sleep in the upper service corridor behind the air scrubbers. There's a maintenance alcove at junction C4, no cameras." He blinks. "What's happening?" I glance both ways. The corridor is empty, but microphones live in the vents. I lean in until my mouth almost touches his ear. "Listen, the captain's list for the next cryo decommission came down tonight. I use the official phrase. Daniel only knows it means pods are being taken offline, written off as failed, never to wake. Your ID is on it." His brows knot. "That's impossible. My vitals are clean. My family's clean. I don't even snore in my sleep. It's not about vitals." I keep my voice a thread. "It's about the new math. They're scraping deeper into the stacks. Your cousin Marcus is already flagged. No living kin awake, they say, but they're stretching the rules. You're next." The color drains from his cheeks, slow as water leaving a cracked trough. "They can't just... They can." I press the seedling tray back level before it tips. "And I can't stop them with signatures. So I need you gone until I figure out how. Service corridor behind the scrubbers, C4, no cameras. I'll meet you." Daniel's throat works. "You're sure?" I nod once, sharp. "I'm sure I'm not letting them open your pod, trust me. Move tonight." He exhales, shaky. Then he does the thing I didn't expect. He hugs me. Fast, fierce, tray between us. Dirt spilling warm onto my coat. When he pulls back, his eyes are bright, but dry. "I trust you," he whispers. "Don't be late." He disappears into the dusk sim light, footsteps soft as guilt. I head the other way, down, toward the recycler, carrying the weight of a promise that could snap both our necks. The lift rattles down to deck 10, and the doors split open on a hush I've never heard before. A silence that feels rehearsed. The recycler is already cycling low, a steady thump that usually starts at 0100. Someone has fired it early. Silas, I think. I step out. The overhead fluorescents are dimmed to emergency amber, the color of old bruises. Every surface gleams with the same disinfectant sheen I scrub on after every harvest. But tonight the smell is sharper, metallic, as though the machine has begun tasting itself. I walk the narrow catwalk that skirts the main hopper. Below, the steel mouth is open, its interior lit by a single red bulb. My wrist chrono reads 23:58. 6 hours and 2 minutes until the shift change, until Daniel is supposed to vanish. Until I'm supposed to wheel Marcus Hale in here. Then Daniel's cousin. Then, if they get their way, Daniel. Silas emerges from the shadow of the secondary chute, wiping his hands on a rag the colour of rust. He stops when he sees me, but he doesn't look surprised. "Couldn't sleep either," he says. "I keep my voice level. Came to run diagnostics on the feed line." "Liar." He folds the rag, tucks it into his belt. "You came to see if you could still pull the switch." His gaze drifts to the hopper, then back to me. "It gets easier after the 5th, or so I've heard." I feel the weight of the knife I didn't bring. "I'm not doing 6 tomorrow." Silas tilts his head, listening to the hum as if it's speaking just to him. "You'll do what the ship demands, same as your father, same as his father." He steps closer. "Or you'll step aside and let someone who still believes carry the load." I picture Daniel's seedling crushed between us earlier tonight, the warm soil spilling. Belief isn't the same as truth. Truth! Silas gives the word a pitying laugh. Truth is what keeps the lights on. Everything else is sentiment. He reaches past me and pats the hopper's rim. 6 bodies. One of them your little gardener. You can feel sorry, or you can feel full. Pick. His hand lingers on the steel. I notice the scarring across his knuckles, old burns from reaching too deep into the sterilizer, marks of devotion. He sees me looking and smiles, small and satisfied. I take one step back, then another. "I'll make my choice at 0600, I say. "Not before." Silas shrugs like it's already decided. "The ship's patient," he says, "but not endlessly." He turns and disappears into the dark beyond the chute, footsteps swallowed by the thrum of the machine. I stay where I am, palms flat on the rail, watching the red bulb pulse like a single steady heartbeat. Somewhere in the tanks below, Ana Flores is cooling into tomorrow's breakfast. Somewhere above, Daniel is, hopefully, already crawling through the vents. I press my thumb against the rail until the skin goes white. 6 hours. Enough time to break a rule, or to become one more echo in the steel. I push off the rail and head for the ladder that climbs back toward the light. The ladder ends on deck 8, but I don't step off. I hang there a moment, boots on the rungs, cheek against metal, listening. The ship speaks in ticks and sighs, coolant cycling through pipes, the far-off clank of some automated valve, but no footsteps, no voices. Good. I swing over the lip and land soft. Daniel should be inside the maintenance alcove by now, wedged behind the bulkhead scrubbers with the vent grate pulled shut. I imagine him counting heartbeats the same way I'm counting seconds. I imagine the seedling tray balanced on his knees, dirt spilling into his lap every time the ship shudders. I imagine him still trusting me. The service corridor is a narrow throat lit every 10 meters by yellow strips. I keep my stride smooth, shoulders brushing conduit bundles, counting the same 37 panels I memorized as a kid when I used these tunnels to escape my father's silence. At panel 23, the wall panel hum changes pitch. Someone just opened the blast door on deck 9 above. Could be routine. Could be Silas. I don't speed up. Running leaves footprints in sound. Junction C4 is a pocket of deeper dark where 2 ventilation trunks cross overhead like steel arteries. The grate is ajar. Daniel left it that way on purpose. I slip inside and pull it shut behind me, thumb the latch until it clicks. The alcove is smaller than I remembered, barely wide enough for 2 people shoulder to shoulder. Daniel is there, knees drawn up, tray balanced on his shins. In the low glow from the grate's louver, he looks younger, almost childlike, except for the dirt under his nails and the tight set of his jaw. "You came," he whispers. "Told you I would." I slide down beside him. The tray wobbles. A seedling tilts and I steady it with 2 fingers. The soil is still warm. He's been cradling it like a hot brick against the chill. "How long do we wait?" he asks. "Until the klaxon. After that, we move together." I dig into my coat, pull out the straw tube with the schematic inside, and press it into his palm. "If anything happens to me, this goes public. Every console on the ship." He curls his fingers around it like it's a live coal. "What's in it?" Proof the gardens could have been fixed a century ago. Daniel's eyes widen, then narrow. Quick calculation. The way he does when a nutrient mix is off by 0.5 gram. "Then why? Later." I touch the seedling's tiny leaf. "First we survive tonight." The ship groans around us, metal expanding and contracting. Somewhere far below, the recycler keeps its patient heartbeat. I count along, marking time. 5 hours, 12 minutes until the shift change. 5 hours until I find out if I can still be the technician, or if I have to become something the protocol never planned for. Daniel shifts. "Tell me one true thing," he says, while we wait. I think of my father's last word scrawled in blood. I think of Anna Flores's peaceful face. I think of the empty pod waiting for Daniel. I meet his eyes and answer. "I'm done feeding ghosts." The klaxon hits at 05:45 exactly, a single flat note that ripples through the ship like a plucked wire. In the alcove behind the scrubbers, Daniel flinches, cradling the seedling tray against his chest. I give him a quick squeeze on the shoulder, and then we move. We crawl the north vent shaft, single file. The metal is warm from the heat exchangers, and every vibration feels like a heartbeat. I count the joints. 7 to the vertical riser, 12 up to deck 4. When we reach the access grate, I stop and peer through the slats. The corridor beyond is empty, the lights dimmed to quarter power. I flick the latch with 2 fingers and slide the grate aside. We drop into a service bay smelling of old plastic. From here, it's 63 steps to the emergency stair that leads to the observation blister, one of the few places the cameras loop on a 30-second delay. I mapped the route years ago, chasing my father's footsteps through the same shadows. We're halfway there when the intercom crackles. Not the usual shift change announcement. This is Rourke's voice, clipped, urgent. "Technician Cole, report to Cryo Bay lockout station. Non-compliance will be treated as dereliction." The voice ricochets down the corridor. Daniel's knees almost buckle. I shove him forward, one hand on his back, the other steadying the seedling tray. We sprint the last stretch to the stairwell, boots clanging like dropped tools. Up 2 flights until the blister door looms. I thumb the stolen override, 6 digits the day the gardens died, and the latch sighs open. Inside, starlight floods the dome. Daniel sets the tray on the floor, cupping a leaf like it's the last candle in the dark. I yank the emergency access panel beside the viewport, exposing the maintenance jack. I pull the straw tube, the one Daniel has kept tucked inside his sleeve since I handed it to him in the alcove. He unfolds the schematic himself now, hands steadier than mine. The micro-slice glints in the starlight. "You sure?" he whispers. I nod. If they take me, the truth still walks. Daniel slides the slice into the port and taps transmit. The screen flashes green, uplink active. 43 seconds until every console on the ship receives the file. Footsteps thunder up the stairwell. I step between Daniel and the door, palms open, no weapon left but the evidence already racing through the ship's veins. The lock wheel spins and the blister door clanks open. Captain Rourke steps through first. No drawn weapon, just that same measured calm that makes the air feel thinner. Behind him, 2 security officers fan out, stun batons low, blue arcs licking the metal floor. The viewport at my back is a bowl of starlight. There's nowhere to go but forward or into vacuum. Rourke's gaze flicks to the maintenance jack. The green uplink light is still flashing. 3 seconds left before the schematic hits every screen on the ship. He studies Daniel, then me, the way a technician studies a valve that's begun to whistle. "Arthur," he says, almost kindly, "close the port." I stay where I am. It's already gone. The green light winks out. Somewhere far off I hear the first console chime, an alert tone repeating in the mess hall, then another on the bridge, then a cascade of them, spreading like spilled water. Rourke's jaw tightens a millimeter. That's all the emotion he allows. He lifts a small remote from his belt, simple black rectangle, one red button. Emergency lockdown. In 30 seconds, every hatch on this deck seals. After that, security purges non-essential personnel. His thumb hovers. "Step aside, bring me the chip, I can still call it off." Daniel shifts beside me, tray clutched to his chest like a shield. I feel the tremor in his elbow. "Your math's wrong, Captain. You're counting bodies. We're counting lives." Rourke's eyes stay on me. "You're out of moves, technician." I draw a slow breath. Not yet. I reach for the seedling tray. I lift one cup, tiny root ball cradled in my palm, and hold it out like evidence. These grow in reclaimed waste. Under lights, we can patch ourselves. The schematic proves the gardens were repairable a century ago. You chose control over cultivation. That choice ends tonight. Behind Rourke, the officers shift, uncertain. One of them glances at the viewport. Rourke's thumb hovers over the red button. "Last chance." I shake my head and nod toward the corridor beyond him. Through the open door I can hear distant voices rising. First a shout, then a dozen, then the sound of boots running. The schematic is doing its work. Rourke hears it too. For the first time his calm fractures, just a hairline crack. He lowers the remote, calculating new variables. "Then we'll discuss this on the bridge," he says, "with the entire crew watching." He steps back, gestures for us to walk. The officers part, uncertain, batons still humming but pointed at the floor. Daniel and I exchange a look, fear and something fiercer behind it. We step forward, into the corridor where the first crowd is already gathering. Screens glowing with the same damning schematic, voices overlapping like a long-suppressed prayer. Behind us the blister door seals, but the viewport stays open. Starlight spilling down the passage, lighting the way to whatever garden or graveyard waits at the end. The corridor feels wider than it ever has, the way a throat feels right before a scream. Screens every 10 paces flash the same image. The schematic fragment, the damning timestamp, the initials in Captain Rourke's own clipped hand. The words "repairable with onboard fabrication" flash in red like a heartbeat. People stop mid-stride, trays of breakfast nutrient clattering to the deck. A woman from sanitation reads the line aloud, voice cracking. "We could have grown food this whole time," someone else answers with a sound more animal than word. Rourke walks ahead of Daniel and me, spine straight, boots ringing the same measured cadence he's used since childhood. The two security officers flank us, but their batons are lowered. The batons can't quiet an entire deck. Crew members press back against the bulkheads to let us pass, eyes wide, some afraid, some furious, most uncertain which way the floor will tilt next. A junior engineer, barely 20, grease still on his knuckles, steps forward like he wants to speak. Rourke's glance pins him in place. The kid swallows and falls back into the crowd. We reach the main lift. The doors slide open on a compartment already packed with people from mid-deck, hydroponics techs, med staff, waste reclamation operators. They fall silent when they see the captain. Then they see Daniel holding the seedling tray, soil flecked across his forearms like dried blood, and they see me. Thumbprint bruises under my eyes, badge dangling upside down. A low murmur ripples outward. I catch Daniel's cousin Marcus Hale in the back row, eyes fixed on the schematic still cycling across the lift's screen. His mouth forms the word "why" without sound. Rourke raises a hand. The murmur doesn't stop. It only drops half a register. "Bridge," he tells the lift. The doors shut. For 30 floors we ride in silence, broken only by the lift cables humming. Daniel stands so close I feel the tremor in his elbow. The doors open on the command level. The bridge is a ring of consoles and starlight, the viewport curving overhead like a glass sky. Officers rise from their stations, confusion flickering across faces as they see civilians in the corridor, as they see the captain flanked by 2 armed guards and 2 men with dirt under their nails. Screens everywhere mirror the schematic. The hydroponics bay intact, the repair kit on board, the stamp of classified. A junior nav officer actually takes a step backward, bumping into her chair. Rourke moves to the center of the bridge, the exact spot where 4 generations of his family have announced course corrections and ration cuts. He turns to face the growing crowd, bridge crew, lift passengers, and now the first wave from the lower decks arriving via the secondary stairs. His voice carries without amplification. "Return to your posts," he says. "This is a matter of command authority." No one moves. I step forward, seedling still cupped in my palm. My voice is quieter than his, but the room is so silent it carries anyway. "The matter," I say, "is whether we keep eating our future or start planting it." A hydroponics tech lifts a hand, tentative. "Can we fix the gardens?" I nod. "With what's on board? With what we've always had?" Rourke's eyes narrow. "Speculation, the original failure." "Wasn't a failure," I cut in. I raise my other hand, thumb stained red from the paper cut earlier. It was a choice, and choices can be unmade. Behind me, the crowd shifts, a single organism finding its balance. I feel the weight of every gaze, some pleading, some hungry, some afraid. I feel the ship itself, listening through the vents and conduits. Rourke takes 1 step toward me. "Arthur Cole, you are relieved of duty. Security..." But the word dies in his mouth, as every console on the bridge chimes at once. A new message overrides the schematic. "System override. Cryobay lockout released." The screens flash again, and this time the list that appears isn't the Harvest Manifest. It's the full passenger roster, every sleeper, every pod status green. Someone, Daniel's cousin maybe, or a junior engineer with more courage than sense, has opened the floodgates. The bridge exhales, a long collective breath that feels like the first honest lungful this ship has drawn in 100 years. Rourke looks at me, and for the first time I see something in his eyes that isn't certainty. It's calculation, and just a flicker of fear. I raise the seedling so the starlight touches its single fragile leaf. "Time to choose," I say, and the ship listens. Rourke lifts his chin, the way a captain does when the deck tilts under his feet, but he still has to speak. "Arthur, step down." I don't move. The bridge has stopped breathing. Every station light, every face, every heartbeat is angled toward us like we're the only hinge left in the ship. I feel the seedling stem tremble between my fingers, alive, fragile, stubborn. I hold it higher so the overhead starlight catches the single green leaf and throws a tiny shadow across the deck. "Look," I say to the room. "One leaf, one root, one chance to stop chewing the past and start growing the future." A murmur rolls through the crowd, soft at first, then steady, like a tide that's been waiting for permission. Behind me, Daniel shifts, the seedling tray steady against his ribs. His cousin Marcus steps up beside him, still blinking off 2 centuries of sleep, and the murmur gains a body. Rourke's voice slices in. "Security! Take him!" The guards hesitate. They look at the crowd, at the consoles still flashing the override, at the schematic that calls their captain a liar. One lowers his baton, the other doesn't raise his at all. I turn to the nearest comm panel and hit the all-call. The bridge speakers click, then every speaker on the ship. My voice carries through mess halls, engine rooms, hydro bays, cryo aisles, every pocket of recycled air we've ever shared. "This is Arthur Cole, 3rd-generation technician. For 100 years, my family has fed you with the bodies of your sleeping neighbors. The hydroponics failure was never irreparable. Captain Rourke classified the repair plan to preserve control. That ends now. I drop my badge onto the deck. The upside-down insignia spins once and stops. Effective immediately, Contingency Protocol 734 is suspended. All pods remain sealed until we restore the gardens. Anyone who wants to volunteer for greenhouse duty, report to Deck 6. Silence. Then a slow swell. Clapping, voices, boots stamping deck plating. It starts at the back of the bridge and rolls outward like an engine coming online. I see Jacob Bell near the lift, eyes wet, mouth open in a grin he hasn't worn in decades. I see a sanitation tech raise both fists. I see the security officer who lowered his baton step forward and plant it on the deck like a flag. Rourke stands alone in the center ring. His gaze flicks to the viewport, to the seedling still trembling in my hand. His shoulders sag, the first honest doubt he's felt in 40 years. He simply nods once, as if acknowledging a course correction he can no longer override. I turn back to the comm. Shift changes now. Let's grow something worth arriving for. The cheering spreads, louder, unstoppable, echoing through vents and companionways, until the Starseeker herself seems to vibrate with it. The first deep breath of a ship remembering it was built to carry life, not just to consume it. I never learned the exact moment the gardens came back. One day, I was elbow deep in a trough of reclaimed soil, coaxing a soy leaf root out of a cracked pod sleeve, and the next there was honest daylight slipping through repaired panes overhead. The daylight I felt was the fresh, white-blue glow of the new LED arrays we rebuilt from salvaged hydroponic fixtures and surplus grow lamps. After so many years under the amber of emergency bulbs, the restored spectrum looked and felt like morning on Earth. The polymer panes we patched are still outer hull windows, but they now face inward toward the new lamp banks, so the light scatters through the greenhouse and hits the leaves the way real dawn once did. The first new leaf unfurled the color of young hope, and the entire greenhouse went quiet, as if the plant had just spoken its first word. Daniel keeps count on a length of twine tied to the central strut. 93 seedlings now, each knot a promise kept. Marcus tends the nutrient pumps. Turns out waking up 2 centuries late is easier when you've got a cousin to show you which valve not to touch. Jacob Bell never leaves the lower decks anymore, but he whistles while he rewires the old floodlights to run on half the wattage, saving power for the grow banks. He says the tune is something his mother sang when Earth still had oceans. He hums it low, and sometimes the plants lean toward the sound. Captain Rourke still walks the bridge, but the chair sits empty at shift change. No one's claimed it. We vote on navigation corrections in open meetings now. Messy, loud, human. The first time we overruled him, I thought he'd fight. Instead, he stood aside, hands behind his back, watching the course plot adjust 1/2 degree. I caught his eye afterward. He gave a small nod, as if the math had finally balanced. I keep the empty pod badge in my pocket, upside down, edges worn smooth. I take it out sometimes when the work stalls or the humidity drops or the leaf tips brown. I run my thumb over the blank face and remember what it felt like to be a function instead of a man. Then I tuck it away and go back to pruning, to measuring, to coaxing the next root through recycled soil. There's dirt under my nails now, permanent, and every speck of it is proof that the past can be turned under. We won't reach Kepler 186f in my lifetime, but every morning the trays are fuller, the hum of the recycler quieter. Some nights I walk the old cryo bay, now a dormitory where volunteers sleep on cots between rows of tomatoes, and I listen. The silence there has changed. It no longer sounds like waiting. It sounds like rest. Tomorrow, I'll plant the first oak acorn we managed to coax from stored embryo. It won't shade anyone aboard this ship, but I'll set it in the tray, cover it with the same soil that once fed on us, and I'll whisper the only benediction I have left. Grow, remember, begin again.